I want to start this video off by saying I'm one of the biggest SpongeBob fans you will ever meet. I've seen nearly every episode more than once, lots of them hundreds of times, memorizing all the little things like animation details, mistakes, and hilarious Easter eggs, from not just the pre-movie seasons, might I add you. Another disclaimer I have before starting is that I'm not a post-movie hater. I do believe the post-movie era has tons of gems, and in some cases some fantastic episodes. But I would describe the post-movie era more as inconsistent. For every Krusty Towers or Not Normal, there's episodes such as, and I'm going to ignore the most mainstream, notorious episodes, there's episodes such as Pet or Pests or this episode. Before we get into the episode, I would like to state my opinion on Season 6 of SpongeBob. While some consider Season 7 the worst season of the show because of unfortunate episodes such as A Pal for Gary and, of course, One Course Meal, I've always found Season 6 way worse. For a few reasons. One, while Seasons 4 and 5 I felt like were a mixed bag of quality, Season 6 is where I felt the show truly started to crash and burn. There were more bad episodes in the season than good for the first time ever. Which I feel like by Season 7, you would come to expect that. But Season 6 is shockingly awful, where Season 7 is just kind of like boringly awful. It's really dull. Two, there are just so many things wrong with this season that I cannot even begin to state. These problems plague even the best episodes of the season. The animation is created horrifically and pretty much made off-putting on purpose. The characters are unlikable on many of these episodes, and the show just more than ever feels so downbeat and depressing, and like it's just so mean-spirited. For a cartoon like SpongeBob that's supposed to be like really happy, campy, and upbeat, that's a problem. Also, the humor, might I add, is incredibly lackluster. That is point number 3. I'm like, yeah, these episodes definitely are not nearly as funny as the older ones. And not even just 1 to 3. There were still really funny episodes in Seasons 4 to 5. There's not really any of these besides a couple that are even close to as funny. Now that I've gotten that ramble out of the way, time to tackle today's episode, which is Choir Boys. Now, I realize the show is still going on, but for now, this is my worst episode of SpongeBob ever. The episode that I least enjoy coming back to, and the one that frustrates me to no end. So yes, you guys have rarely ever seen me get mad, like on this channel, but this review, I'm gonna get mad. This is a serious review, and it's gonna get good, so strap in, folks. Let's do this. And honestly, I don't feel like the show will ever reach this peak of badness ever again. I feel like the newest episodes, you know, they're not quite the Seasons 1 to 3 quality. They're just kind of inoffensive. They're kind of like, well, they'll nab a few good jokes, but they're not going to get really more than just a simple basic plot, which is good. I'm glad that they're not doing stuff like this again, but I just don't feel like the show will ever reach this level of badness. Not even Ink Lemonade is that bad compared to this. But let's go back to 10 years ago, where this episode, yes, it's that bad. So grab your crusty dog and get your wieners ready. Let's do this. The episode begins with, like a lot of bad episodes, some complete filler. Yay! Figaro! Literally, the only importance of the scene I feel like was to set up how important the choir was to Squidward, but we really don't need this long of a setup. This, unfortunately, is honestly the closest thing to a laugh I get in this episode, and even this isn't that funny. So yeah, we get a literal minute and a half of Squidward doing nothing but getting ready for choir and making those stupid singing choir noises. Figure out, 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 figure out. Wow, this episode really isn't trying at all. Finally, around almost 2 minutes in, mind you, we begin with SpongeBob standing on the ground. When Squidward sees this, somehow instead of ignoring him like I feel like Squidward would normally do, he stops and wonders why SpongeBob is all quiet. This one little move will ruin Squid's day completely. Squidward should have just left SpongeBob there and none of this would have happened.
Obviously depressed.
Yeah, Squiddy. Enjoy that, buddy. It all gets worse from here. Boy, does it get worse. This is a nitpick, but they do that whole SpongeBob is gay for Squidward joke again, where he puts his 2 fingers on Squidward's leg, and Squidward literally has to grab his fingers and take him off his leg because SpongeBob won't let go. And that combined with his facial expression, it's just unsettling. With a third of the episode now burned away, Squidward gets on his bike and attempts to go to choir practice. Of course, he can't just have a nice, relaxing trip there. That would be too much to ask for these new writers. Let's just, see what happens, shall we? Firstly, SpongeBob wastes another 20 seconds coughing. Then SpongeBob tries to sing again for Squidward, which, aside from being unfunny and annoying,
I'm good enough to join the Bikini Bottom men's chorus, I promise.
It's also kind of jarring because he tries to convince Squidward that he is good enough for the men's chorus, but Squidward obviously does not run the choir. It's shown later that he just he's part of the choir. He's joining the choir. So why SpongeBob couldn't have just talked to the choir lady about it, I have no idea. He had to bug Squidward, and I'm like, I don't get it. Anyways, now we're getting to where the episode goes from frustrating to downright insufferable. Thinking Squid didn't see him, SpongeBob creates a pothole that catapults Squidward into jellyfish fields instead of, I don't know, just simply making him fall off his bike. Like, literally, it just catapults him way into jellyfish fields.
This giant pothole ought to get his attention.
Yeah, jellyfish begin to pin Squidward down for no reason, might I add, because this is before SpongeBob started singing. And then while singing, SpongeBob literally tells Squidward to be quiet so he can find his pitch. Like,
Squidward, could you keep it down, please? I'm trying to find my starting pitch here.
How stupid are you, SpongeBob? Do I even have to explain why that's frustrating? Moving on. Squidward is now back on the road at this point, but his nice acne-free complexion has now been decimated by all the jellyfish stings. And this is another point, but they couldn't have just made it the jellyfish stings from, like, I'm Your Biggest Fanatic, where they were just like those little red bulgy things. No, they spent good time on this, and more money than your mom and dad probably make in a year animating these disgusting zits. But that's not all. Are you ready, kids? Enjoy your nightmares. He's stopped once again by SpongeBob, and at this point, he's completely stopped trying to disguise himself as still the same Sponge that we all knew and loved.
That's right. I'm a singing traffic cop.
Singing traffic!
Here, he is just downright intentionally stopping Squidward from going to the men's chorus because they had no other ideas for this plot. They had to just keep making SpongeBob be annoying. So yeah, Squidward then ties SpongeBob up, but SpongeBob starts singing, and somehow the jellyfish think he's good, so they grab him and then take him all the way to the men's choir. Also, another disturbing face, but by now, if you marathon the season, yeah, this is the norm. This isn't just a one-off thing. In almost every Season 6 episode, you're bound to find some disturbing image, so just deal with it. Then we come to the big event this episode was building up. Time, 7.5 minutes. And Squidward goes in, and yes, because it's Squidward, it has to be awkward. We get an overly long coughing gag from Squidward. How disappointing. Also, a throat spray gag. Like, isn't he supposed to be like a gentleman, like the mature one? I don't get it. They make him act like he's 12 here. All of a sudden, and most frustratingly, SpongeBob comes in and now everybody loves him.
We would be honored if you would take the open chair as our featured soloist.
Like, it just sucks to see a whole episode of SpongeBob being so unlikable and then getting rewarded for it. So yeah, then they tell him they want him in the concert singing the main part. At the very least, SpongeBob did say that he wanted a spot for his good friend Squidward. Like, that was a little bit of a good gesture from SpongeBob. The only good gesture from SpongeBob in this episode, but you know what? I will give it that. Just seeing the utterly miserable and depressed look coloring Squid's face, it's just a nightmare. So that was my worst episode of SpongeBob SquarePants. The moment I thought the show hit the bottom of the barrel. Like, the least enjoyable episode of the entire 300 plus episode run, however many long it's going to go on. And look, many of you are probably questioning why it's not one course meal. And I'm going to give episodes like One Course Meal the very benefit of the doubt. This episode was not good at all, but at least that episode didn't get bad until later, around the part with the Mr. Krabs scaring Plankton part or whatever, and all the ambiguities surrounding it. But this episode, it was lazy, and it was painful to sit through both combined for the entire runtime. The entire runtime, I was frustrated, I was angry at this episode, and it was terrible. This episode, it's truly the bottom of the barrel, guys. At this point, SpongeBob was such a mainstream, huge show. It could put out any plot, no matter how draggy, how padded out. and how miserable, and kids would still watch because, hey, it's SpongeBob. I mean, hey, it worked on me. I really couldn't tell the difference between a post-movie and a pre-movie episode until I was like 11. But even still, as a kid, I still hated this episode. And the most disheartening part about this whole thing is think of what they could have done with this. I would have loved to see how Squidward gets along with his choir buddies, you know, have some interaction, to see some progression in their singing, some funny banter, or just heck, maybe seeing the guys work on their music a lot and, you know, have the guys be pretty funny, have some good jokes there, and then at the end have a good musical number and then everybody's happy. And of course, I would like to see Squidward be the star because, hey, he wasn't overly mean in this episode. He's just pretty irritated because SpongeBob's being aggressively annoying.
Well, I've got no time for the likes of you.
The mild remarks he makes in this episode, they don't even compare to what SpongeBob is doing. Those are just remarks anybody would make when they're being genuinely irritated by somebody. But even without the frustrating choices this episode chooses to make, with its portrayal of the characters and the horrible, atrocious animation, the actual choir boys are only on screen for 3 minutes out of 11. It takes him literally 8 minutes to get there. And aside from some admittedly decent harmonizing from the choir boys, you know, they're not bad. There is little to no dialogue that happens, and none of it even involves Squidward. They don't even talk to Squidward at all. The only lines they have at all are just talking about how great SpongeBob is, then they talk to SpongeBob about the concert, and then there, boom, it's done. The episode should have been titled Squidward Tries to Get the Choir Practice. Or better yet, Squidward desperately attempts to escape the evil yellow box-shaped menace that is stalking him, impersonating a police officer, and causing his complexion and his attitude literal damage. Yeah. Probably a better title. So yes, this is easily the most deplorable and my pick for the worst SpongeBob episode. Many bad SpongeBob episodes are lazy. Many bad episodes are frustrating. But this just takes both of them and turns them both up to 11. The lazy and frustrating qualities, mashes them together into a big pile of nothing. The plot is utterly wasted. The actual jokes here are mainly repetitive, and the ones that aren't just fall completely flat.
Don't feel bad. He didn't use me yesterday either.
And there's not even many jokes here to begin with, and the fact that they aren't funny just makes an utterly humorless episode. The build-up to the choir scene results in a complete letdown also, because once he's there, you're like, okay, finally something good could happen to Squidward. But no, Squidward sucks, SpongeBob has to win. That's the status quo. Honestly, guys, I'm done with this. This episode has literally nothing enjoyable to it at all, and I would personally rate it a 0 out of 10. Also, I am in a choir, and as a choir boy and a SpongeBob fan, this episode makes me sick. This episode literally makes me sick. I'm out of here. Screw this episode.